You're listening to a Cult Talk Network podcast.
File access granted.
Welcome, all you believers, idealists, skeptics, all those who question the universe around them. I'm Ty.
And I'm Bailey.
And this is Cult Talks Conspiracy. File 036, the Georgia Guidestones. Bailey.
Yeah.
We just finished up your Dyatlov Pass episode. We got a part 2 cooking here following this.
We do.
Have you ever heard of the Georgia Guides? Aren't you from Georgia?
I am from Georgia. Yeah, my whole family's from Georgia, and I did catch a little bit of flack for not knowing the Georgia Guidestones in that airing. So, to the Mosley and Sowell part of my family, I'm sorry. You should have taught me better, though.
Whereabouts were you guys from? Let's see if we can...
So my family's from Vidalia, which is like southeast Georgia, and then I'm from Augusta.
I'm pull up Google Maps here.
Okay.
I'm gonna search.
Don't ask me how to spell it.
Everton, Georgia, which is where the Guidestones are located. And let's go. Where was that?
Vidalia. You spell it Vidalia, like the onions.
Dela, Georgia. I butchered that. Let's see if it finds anyways.
I told you how to spell it.
That is 3 hours away. So it was like not really too close.
Yeah. I mean, it's like 3 hours is close to me.
Yeah,
that's
close.
You could do 3 hours. Anyway.
Yeah.
Except in Georgia, it's like flat. Well, it's not flat. It's just all counting country road. It's whew. But
I've never been.
Oh man, it's beautiful. I love it. It's great. I will never drive through Atlanta though. I just like going there for like the freaking peace and Southerners. They're inherently nice, but there's something about Georgia Southerners that they're just nicer to you. Like everyone's your friend.
I had a layover once in Atlanta. Now that I think about it.
I grew up like thinking Atlanta wasn't really part of Georgia. Because that's what my parents told me. They were like, Atlanta's not a part of Georgia. Like, that's a whole nother island. Like, we don't know what that is. So, and then as I got older, they stopped saying it. So.
Interesting.
But
I had no idea.
I don't know. I'm excited to hear about the Georgia Guidestones because I had looked up a little bit, not a whole lot, because in the weeks leading up to this podcast, you and I had talked about our topics, and you had said that you were doing the Guidestones, and I was like, I don't know what that is. So
that's crazy. I knew you didn't know what it was. I mentioned it back in, I think it was the Y2K episode, or maybe like Giants. It was one of the episodes.
Yeah,
later,
I think it was
earlier
Giants.
This year.
I think
I mentioned it, and you said you didn't know what it was. So that was why I was like, oh, I'll definitely need to cover that, especially since you're from Georgia. I figured it'd be. Maybe teach you a little bit about where you're from.
Yeah. Show me about my roots, or teach me about my own roots. Okay.
But here we are. This is the first week here in February 2024, rolling on strong. We got Y2K. We got Dyatlov Pass. We're getting a double helping of that, like I said here in the following episode. And we're mixing in with the Georgia Guidestones. Kind of a mixed bag of stuff we're doing this year.
I love the vibe of it, though. Like, it's just like a free flow vibe. Like,
yeah, that's how we've been. I mean, unless we're doing Culttober or Summer at Sea, it's pretty random the amount of stuff we cover, which I think helps.
Yeah,
we got a little bit of everything.
A little bit. We got.
It's hard to put a finger on the pulse of what exactly we're covering most of the time.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't.
You get one thing, you get another thing the next episode.
Yeah,
keeps everyone on their toes.
I decide 2 days before I have to start doing stuff. Oh yeah, that's what I want to do. That was interesting.
Usually my stuff is subject to change because I might have an idea of an episode, and then I might randomly stumble across a Reddit post or an Instagram post or something, and I'll be like, oh, I want to do that instead.
Yeah, it works well though. It works fabulous. Where did you first hear about the Georgia Guidestones?
I have no idea where I first heard about the Georgia Guidestones, honestly. I think it was on a History Channel documentary or something, probably. Mm-hmm. Maybe Unsolved Mysteries, maybe.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It was definitely a documentary. I was pretty young when I first heard about it, because I've always had it. One of those things I've always had an idea of or had knowledge of. I never really dug too much into it. I mean, this is definitely the most research I've ever actually done into it. But yeah, it's definitely something I probably heard on a History Channel documentary. Now that I think about it, it's probably that, or like Destination Truth, maybe. I don't know if they did it. I don't think they did. I don't know if they did. That's more cryptid shit, cryptid and ghost stuff.
I
Not,
don't feel like they did either. It might have been talked about.
It might have been Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah.
If they did it, or a show similar in vein to that, probably. But you ready to learn more about the Georgia Guidestones, baby?
Absolutely. I'm excited. This is great.
All right. Everyone buckle up. Go ahead and let's sit back, relax. Let's unseal File 036, Stone Cold Secrets, the Cryptic Georgia Guidestones. Wednesday, July 6th, 2022 at 4 a.m., residents of Elbert County, Georgia were awakened by the sound of an explosion.
Uh-oh.
Elbert County Sheriff's officers rushed to the scene where they found the rubble of the infamous Georgia Guidestones. Starting us at the end.
Oh, okay.
The Georgia Guidestones had fallen.
Oh, no.
Unveiled over 40 years prior by Congressman Doug Bernard on March 22nd, 1980, to an audience of 300 people on a 5-acre cattle pasture 7 miles north of the town of Elberton, Georgia. The plot of land was legally purchased from a local farmer who, despite selling the land, was granted free lifetime rights to use the land.
Oh,
so
nice.
Some guy came and was like, I want to buy this piece of property off of you, and you can still use it as you usually would.
And he wrote it down, which is the most important part in a real estate transaction. You write that shit down.
It was all legal, all in writing, everything.
That's fucking awesome.
Upon its unveiling, the Elbert County Master of Ceremonies gave a statement. In order to avoid debate, we, the sponsors of the Georgia Guidestones, have a simple message for human beings, now and for the future. We believe our precepts are sound. They must stand on their own merits. You see, Elbert County, Doug Bernard, or the local farmer, anyone really associated with the unveiling, they had no hand in the creation of the Georgia Guidestones. Elbert County had the ownership transferred to it. So the county basically became owners of this structure after its creation.
Is that because it was on private property?
No, I mean, it was private property. Would have been the owner of whoever owned the property.
Okay.
So someone had bought the property, had the structure created, and following that, gave ownership over to the county.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Now, Robert C. Christian, or R.C. Christian, is the only name to ever be directly connected to the stones. Unfortunately, this is not an actual name, but rather a pseudonym. A reference to the Christian religion of which the man said that he was a devout follower of. Now, aside from this false name, not much else is known about R.C. Christian. R.C. Christian simply came into existence one day in June of 1979 when he walked into the Elberton Granite Finishing Company and met with a man named Joe Finley. Christian claimed he was representing a small group of loyal Americans who had come together to commission a structure that could act as a clock, a compass, a calendar, and most importantly, could withstand a catastrophic event.
I got bad news.
That's what I was thinking too. See, we talk a little more here in this file about what the expectations of the structure were, and it didn't withstand whatever homemade explosive was used on it. But
Oh, it's
It
so
was meant to
sad.
withstand a pretty catastrophic event, which we'll talk about here later.
Oh, it's sad,
Plot
guys.
twist: I don't think it would
Oh,
have, judging by the what we have today.
oh boy.
Christian also included 10 pages of precise specifications the structure had to include, and he even included a very small scale model of what he wanted the structure to be, to at least resemble.
Mm-hmm.
Upon looking over all the specs, Findlay tried to discourage Christian. He thought Christian was a nut. He's like, this is far out of reach of anything that I have ever been commissioned to do.
I mean, yeah, they're asking for a lot there.
Right. He thought the structure was doable, but was way more complex than any he or his company had ever built before. But Christian was persistent. He wanted this done. He wanted it done here. In one final attempt to deter Christian, Findlay quoted Christian a price several times higher than any project Elberton Granite Finishing Company had ever attempted. But to Findlay's surprise, Christian agreed without batting an eye.
Oh.
Now, it's estimated that over $100,000 was spent on this project. Now, adjusting for inflation, it would be about $400,000 in today. So almost $500,000
It's pretty substantial.
was spent on this structure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're definitely going to dive into the more controversial aspects of the Guidestone. Don't worry, I love controversial subjects, so of course we'll talk about them. But first, I want to talk a bit about the very precise specs that the structure had to adhere to, and the size of the structure, just so everyone gets an idea of how big this thing is or was. So overall, the Guidestone stood at 19 feet 3 inches. It weighed in at 200,370 pounds. I think I'm really bad at saying numbers.
200,070. Yeah.
It's 237,746.
Just hang on. 237.
I'm bad. Yeah.
Is it 20?
I get anxious every time I go and like get my oil changed.
Aww.
So like I always like before I pull in, I'll look at my number and I'll Google it. How do you say this number?
That's literally what got me through real estate school. I'm not
Yeah.
even kidding. There's howtosaynumbers.com. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real. I Googled it. It was yeah. Is it 20? Is it 23746? Is that what you got?
237,746.
746. So yeah, 237,000. Now you're making
746
yeah,
pounds.
Yeah, that.
Now
we did it.
Each of the 4 main support stones stood at 16 feet 4 inches, and they each weighed in around 4,200 or 42,000 pounds just on their own. The center stone also stood about 16 feet 4 inches, and it weighed over 20,000 pounds on its own.
Oh wow!
Huge, massive structure, all granite. And all the massive structure consisted of over 951 cubic feet of granite that was all sourced from local quarries around Elberton. So when Findlay was like trying to deter Christian into having him commissioned to build this structure, he asked him like, why are you so persistent for me to build this? And that was one of the reasons he gave. I guess Elberton, Georgia, it has just a ton of granite. It's just a
really?
very granite rich land. So that's why he wanted it built there, because it would save on cost of having granite shipped in and moved around and things like that. So that was one of the reasons he wanted to have it built there. As Christian meant for the structure to be used as a compass, clock, and calendar, it was constructed with astrological features. Now, I think these are some of the most impressive features on the stone. I mean, obviously, it's a massive structure. It's impressive in its own right.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some really cool stuff that they had incorporated in the design to meet these specs that Christian wanted. The 4 outer columns were oriented to the exact limits of the lunar declination cycle. Now, this is the cycle of the moon from north to south over the course of a month.
Oh,
So you can measure a month as the moon moves across the sky from north to
that's
south.
cool.
The center column had a hole where the North Star could be seen at night. So you can
Oh,
look through this hole, and North Star is right there at all times, as long as the sky is clear.
Ben, damn it.
And
I want Ben to
and
read
there
me.
was a slot perfectly aligned to the solar equinox and solstices. Now, there was even an additional hole in the capstone that allowed a ray of sunlight to beam through at high noon. And this ray of sunlight would hit another stone and would tell you what day of the year it was. So this thing was just very impressive.
That's
Now, I will say, as impressive as all that sounds, I did find an interview from a professor at Georgia State University who actually went there when the Geisel was still there, and he said they
ooh.
were mediocre at best.
No.
He said they were not very accurate. That it was mediocre at best. You had a pretty good chance of it being accurate, but it was just by coincidence that they weren't as impressive as they sound. I think it was pretty ingenuitive how they
Yeah.
tried to incorporate all these things into the structure.
And I mean, and this was back in the 1980s, did you say?
Yeah, the 80s. So this was built in 79 and unveiled in the 80s, in
Okay.
1980.
I mean, you gotta admit, like, I mean, they didn't have all of like the technology that we do now to make it all accurate and whatnot.
Right.
I mean, that's you gotta give them an A for effort, man. Like that's just
Yeah.
freaking impressive. Yeah, I mean, it's cool. I'm sorry. I was thinking about like how there's a hole up there and you can like look up and see the North Star. Like how many proposals probably happened
Happened in
when the North Star was so high in the sky? Like if you have a proposal story like that, I need pictures and I need to know the story and I need tissues because I'm probably gonna cry. So and don't tell me you're divorced.
Jeez. In the design and features, it's obvious that the Guidestone takes inspiration from Stonehenge.
Right.
Christian, he'd actually visited the landmark of Stonehenge, and he told Finley he hoped that the Guidestones would rival Stonehenge, especially since, when he visited Stonehenge, he thought it was very impressive.
Oh.
He thought it was very impressive, but he didn't really see any significance beyond that. He thought it was just a very impressive structure, but he wanted his structure to be an amalgamation of Stonehenge and the legendary 10 Commandments of the Bible. You're probably familiar with that story, the 10 Commandments, 2 tablets.
Yep.
So he wanted that to be incorporated. He wanted to have kind of a biblical aspect to it. Not necessarily biblical, but he wanted to have this prophetic meaning to it, as well as being this very impressive structure. At the top of the capstone in English, there's the words, "Let this be guidestones to an age of reason." This is then translated so the capstone of the structure is square. So along each edge of that square, that phrase is translated into 4 different languages, which is Babylonian, Greek, Sanskrit, and Egyptian hieroglyphs. So that they have each of those 4 reads out, let these be guidestones to an age of reason.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, the I didn't really find an example. I mean, not example, but a reason behind those 4 languages. There's the other 8 languages we'll talk about here, just coming up. He had a reason for those, but I don't know what the reason was for those languages. But those are the 4 he wanted on there.
Do they all intersect with one another?
I'm not sure. I don't know that much about, I guess, linguistics or whatever there, but I'm not sure if they do. But it's on each side is that phrase in each of those 4 different things.
Yeah, I would be interested in finding out if those languages, like how Latin and English, how we kind of play off of Latin words and all of that crowd. I would wonder if those languages somehow intersected with each other, and that's why they were put the way that they were.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, that would be interesting to see if that's So I'm definitely as much as every aspect of this structure seems to have a meaning to it. I'm sure they weren't just 4 random languages. There's got to be some sort of
they couldn't have been like,
significance to 'em.
well, we've only got 4 left. Where are we going to put them? Just over there.
Now, along the 4 pillars, engraved on each side in 8 different languages. The languages used here are English, Russian, Spanish, Chinese, Hebrew, Hindi, Arabic, and Swahili are the reason for the name, the guide stones.
Okay.
Now, each language was specifically chosen as they represented the majority of the human population and for religious purposes. That's kind of why Hebrew was chosen, was for the religious connotation of it. Now, here's what the engravings read. We talked, just mentioned earlier, the 10 Commandments. That's kind of what he was going for with these. The guide stones includes 10 guidelines. And here's what they are. Maintain humanity under 500 million, perpetual balance with nature.
Oh, we fucked up. Number 1, we done.
Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Unite humanity with a living language. Number 4 is rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Number 5, protect people and nations with fair law and just courts. Number 6, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Number 7, avoid petty laws and useless officials. Number 8, balance personal beliefs with social duties. Number 9, prize truth, beauty, love, seeking humanity with the infinite. And number 10, be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature.
Aww.
Those were the 10 guidelines that R.C. Christian and the aforementioned small group of loyal Americans decided they wanted etched upon this structure they're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for.
I mean, yeah. Ooh.
These, yeah, they're not terrible. There's some, interpretation is kind of what makes this stone so controversial. A couple of these, I can kind of see where some people get a little mixed about them. I think number 1 is kind of an obvious one, but number 10 and stuff like that, I think are just really, really good little things to maybe consider. Now, the 10 guidelines embody 4 main themes: world government, population control, environmental coexistence, and spirituality. All 10 of those will fit into one of those columns if you move them around. Now, as mentioned earlier, R.C. Christian commissioned the guide stones, and he was adamant they would be able to withstand a catastrophic event.
About that.
It was Christian's belief that, and along with the group that helped him fund the stones, that the world was on the brink of a nuclear apocalypse. This would bring the end of the world as we knew it. The population would be decimated, culture and technology lost. But the guide stones would remain for the survivors to rebuild the world back up from, using its teachings to build a perfect society. At least that's what R.C. Christian had envisioned. Unfortunately, these things didn't seem to be that strong.
Yeah, they survived like over 40 years though. That's pretty good.
Yeah, as far as graffiti and stuff like that, they survived. But whatever explosive they put in that thing, last year, did it in pretty quick.
Yeah, I didn't look up anything about the story of how it exploded. So
it was some sort of just homemade explosive. There's really nothing to really go off of, but I'm sure it wasn't a nuclear bomb. I know that. I know that wasn't it. So it didn't fare too well against that.
Oh man, that's so sad, guys. This is why we can't have nice things. Leave the South alone. We've been through enough. Leave it alone.
Yeah, they've been through enough.
I didn't say that. I just said
don't worry. I'm sure they'll rise again one day, Bailey.
Shut up, Ty. That's not what I fucking meant.
Now, the mysterious nature surrounding the structure and the ominous aura of these guidelines obviously spark conjecture. The guidelines, although seemingly direct, are open enough to allow interpretation. I think one most people focus on is the first: maintain humanity under 500 million. So I did some math here with this. Now, currently, here in 2024, the population sits at 8.1 billion people, and that's growing every second. Every second, that's going up. So 8.1 billion people as of now, and the Guidestone says that we should maintain 500 million. That would mean that around 6.1% of the population would only remain, meaning that the guideline is calling for 93.9% of the world to be eliminated.
Oh, that's not good.
No, so that's so. In order, if you were to be like, I want to maintain these guidelines, you'd have to eliminate 93.9% of the population.
That's tough. Listen, no.
That's a lot. That's a lot of people, and a lot of people I'm sure would not be among the few that are chosen to meet that 6.1%.
Oh no.
Now, this has spurred many to believe this to be a call for global genocide, which has been tied to, of course, the all-controlling, the all-seeing New World Order.
Oh.
Now, it's interesting that along with R.C. Christian being this mysterious figure, is this group of loyal Americans, as he put it, who, based on how they responded to the quote from Joe Finley, didn't seem to have an issue with money. $100,000 is obviously not a global elite-sized price, but still, money didn't seem to be a concern for this group.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, it certainly fits the common thread for the global elite narrative. The rich suffocating the poor to secure their power. You know, what better way than to kill 93% of the people that are on the planet?
You know, someone else in history had a thought about how, there was a certain sector of people that just weren't good, and that ended really bad for a certain country in the world. We're not going to name
it
names.
did.
We're not going to
calling for it on a global scale.
Oh man.
Now, another interpretation comes from the second guideline. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. This is almost a definition of the controversial practice known as eugenics. Have you ever heard of eugenics?
No.
So eugenics, they do it with dogs. I mean, that's something they'll do with dogs.
Is it where they test the genealogy and everything?
No. It's like actually manipulating the gene pool.
Oh, okay. So, yes. Yeah. Build a baby.
So it's a practice that involves altering the gene pool by excluding traits seen as inferior and including more desirable ones. An unfortunate example could be the breeding practices of African slaves by plantation owners during that period. That was something that plantation owners would do. They'd find a stud, aka a very fit, strong male, and they would then breed him out to, theoretically pass those genes off to the offspring and build better slaves.
Oh my God. That's awful.
Yeah, that was something that was done, that was practiced during slavery, was a form of eugenics.
That's terrible.
Now, eugenics is very controversial, and a large debate stems from whether or not it's ethical to exclude people from breeding based on what is desirable or not. There's also gene analysis, I think it is, where you can go and check your baby or your fetus for things like Down syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
Things like that. And then you can choose whether or not to proceed with the pregnancy or not. So there's a lot of different ethical things that come into play with that. Whether or not that's smart to do, or not smart to do, but whether or not it's ethical to do that.
Yeah.
A more common interpretation of the structure is its supposed satanic connection. At least that is the favored interpretation for far-right Christian morality activist Mark Dice, whose catalog of controversies include boycotting Starbucks for supposedly depicting a topless siren on their logo.
Yep.
He boycotted the film Angels and Demons starring Tom Hanks for covering up the existence of the Illuminati.
Such a good movie.
And he has also blamed 9/11 for the Illuminati, all that kind of stuff, all the like crazy loony like conspiracy stuff. He's backed it. Now, Mark Dice believes that this small group of loyal Americans and R.C. Christian were actually members of a secret Luciferian society with ties to the New World Order. Dice believes these guidelines are not simply to benefit a post-apocalyptic world, but rather a call to invoke a Christian genocide and to promote pagan beliefs. As he called it, this is for the worshippers of the sun, the moon, and the devil.
You almost had me. You almost had me. You snuck him on in there. No, that's fucking insane.
Now, something else. I didn't write this down. But, I was brought up in church, so I've read the Bible and whatnot. I'm not a fan, but I've read it, and there are some stuff in here that I think could be interpreted as like a because even Wired magazine referred to the guidestones like the 10 commandments of the Antichrist is what they call it.
Oh wow.
And going off what I know of the Antichrist or that portion of the Bible, there are certain things I could see being interpreted as such. The guideline number 3: unite humanity with a living language. That is something that was deterred in the Bible by the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel kind of spoke about that. The one that's why we have different languages is because supposedly at that time we all spoke one language and we're working together to build a tower to heaven.
Oh,
we're going to leave this earth and get to heaven. So to deter us from doing that, God created different languages, so we couldn't communicate.
But why would God do that?
So we couldn't get to heaven. We were trying to build it. We were trying to sneak into heaven.
Oh, okay. We were being bad. Okay.
We're trying to leave this lame ass earth and get to heaven.
I mean, he makes it sound so good.
Yeah. So number 3 is kind of a opposing view to the Tower of Babel. Is the whole world be speaking one language. I think number 6 could also be interpreted as such. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. That kind of, to me, could be interpreted as like a world government, which is something that the Antichrist would have invoked. So one ruling world government. So I could see that.
Yeah, but you could bring it back to the religious sense too, whereas like way back in the day, like 16 and 1700s and even back before, the church had rule over a lot of the monarchies and countries, and a lot of the decisions they made were in favor of the church. So it could also be that that religion or Antichrist could also be kind of pulling the strings behind that. That's
absolutely.
I pretty much pole vaulted into that.
What do you think about the pagan and connotations of it? You know more about that than I. Do you think these could be seen as rooted in paganism? I think number 10, because isn't paganism a lot about like spirituality and nature?
Yeah, spirituality and nature. Yeah, so like, I mean, I believe that like spirit is all around us all the time. Like, there's a reason that our fingerprints and the trees and tree roots look so similar. So, I mean, yeah, there's similarities there. Do I think it's like rooted in paganism? I mean, it certainly could be, but like, I don't.
That's kind of the thing is with these, these guidelines. They're so vague that they're really open for any sort of interpretation. You kind of want to find it. Is what I feel.
Yeah.
It seems like based off what little information we can find at RC Christian, that it was supposed to be Christian based, but it seems like there's a lot of Christians that are like vehemently opposed to it, so they've interpreted it in a different manner. Now,
really interesting.
Speaking of, let's talk about the most prominent figure behind the creation of the Guidestones, R.C. Christian. We know this name is a pseudonym that is assumed to be representative of his Christian beliefs. But filmmaker and famed conspiracy theorist Jay Widner believes the name is actually telling us much more. In the early 17th century, there were many new ways of thinking, many new religions were formed, and one of those was the Rosicrucians, or Rosicrucianism. Now, I had to pull out my notebook because I keep all my files in these little notebooks.
Mm-hmm.
So I went digging through my notebooks because that rang a bell.
Yeah.
And I found that this actually is referenced in file 016. That is file 016, Journey to the Heart of Mount Shasta.
Oh my God.
We actually talk about.
Oh my
we actually talk about
God.
the Rosicrucians. The Rosicrucians actually wrote one of the main texts that was where the idea of Lemuria came from.
What the fuck?
Or a Rosicrucian, prominent member of the Rosicrucian Church actually wrote Lemuria, a lost continent of the Pacific.
Oh,
so that was
my
interesting.
God.
That name rang a bell. It was bugging me. So I opened my notebooks and I found it, or I wrote that down.
Do we think there's a connection between Lemuria
maybe.
and the Guidestones?
Now, the Rosicrucians, or the Order of the Rosy Cross, is what they're referred to as. The Rosicrucians were founded by Christian Rosenkreuz, German aristocrat who, in a previous life, was Lazarus, the man that Christ resurrected from the dead. Or so he claims.
Okay.
So, think about this. R.C. Christian, Rose Cross Christian.
Very interesting.
Very interesting.
Because,
the Rosy Cross, founded by Christian Rosenkreuz. The Georgia Guidestones, created by R.C. Christian.
It's all the same person.
Yeah, it could be.
All the same person. It's
Maybe,
all funded by
the guy Christian Rosenkreuz claimed to have been Lazarus in the previous life. Maybe R.C. Christian was Christian Rosenkreuz in the previous life. I don't know. Wedner also drew comparisons with the guidelines to the teachings of the religion, especially the 18th century pamphlet, The Age of Reason, by Rosicrucian member Thomas Paine.
Yeah,
The Age of Reason.
That was something that I wrote down as something that, I thought was very profound. The Age of Reason. What are we talking about here? Reasoning? Because when I think of the Age of Reason, I think of the first thing that pops into my mind is number one, no war. No war. Everyone is peaceful. You got your shit over there. We got our shit over here. It's fine. We can communicate and be civil. It's fine. But I don't know. Maybe a higher calmness.
Yeah, harmony amongst everyone. Everyone's working together, following these Guidestones. I mean, that could be really what it is. So this, of course, all just theory. But what if someone actually knew the truth or the true identity of the mysterious figure R.C. Christian?
Oh.
Now, funding, building, and paying for something like the Guidestones isn't a simple matter of handing over some cash and going about your business. Especially when it involves hundreds of thousands of dollars and the purchase of land. You can't do that under a pseudonym.
No.
Would you allow that, Bailey? Someone to buy a house?
I didn't even let someone put their nickname on a contract. I was absolutely fucking not. Because what can happen, and the short of the long of it, is if a pseudonym is on a contract, and because technically, you won't own the property, the pseudonym will own the property. Well, the problem is the pseudonym isn't a person. The pseudonym is an entity of yourself, and then it just becomes too complicated. So it's just better just to go ahead and put your legal name on it. And that way you own it free and clear, and there's no issues on the title and how the deed of the ownership of that property can be passed down.
Exactly. So according to the 2015 documentary, Dark Clouds Over Iberton, which, by the way, is available right now on Tubi. All praises be to Tubi. R.C. Christian was well aware of this, so he enlisted the help of a local banker from Everton, Wyatt Martin. Mr. Martin didn't know R.C. Christian prior, or was he associated with the supposed small group of loyal Americans. But he would act as the agent for R.C. Christian's finances. He would handle the wire transfer and all the documentation that came along with the hundreds of thousands of dollars being transferred back and forth, as well as the purchase of the 5-acre plot that the structure would come to sit on.
Okay.
To do so legally, Mr. Martin needed a name to perform the tasks, and R.C. reluctantly gave him his name.
What was it?
Binding that Wyatt Martin made a vow to never reveal it to anyone.
Bullshit. That's what public record is called with property ownership.
I'm not sure about that. I wondered that myself, because I'm like, there's got to be something. But so many investigators had searched for documents. They had probed Martin for the identity of this mystery man. But Wyatt Martin was quoted, "I made an oath to that man, and I cannot break that. No one will ever know."
Wow.
And on December 15th, 2021, Wyatt Martin passed away at the age of 91, honoring the oath, taking the identity to his grave.
Wow.
He honored it to the end. We may never find out who R.C. Christian was or which group he represented. Despite an investigation by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, no suspects have ever been identified in the destruction of the Guidestones.
What?
Yep, no one ever found out who did it. On July 25th, 2022, Elberton Mayor Dan Graves announced, "We're just gearing up and excited about rebuilding the Guidestones. It's going to happen." However, that August, the land that the structure once stood on was legally returned to the previous owner, and the rubble moved to a secure third-party location. And the Elberton City Council expressed doubt the Guidestones would ever be rebuilt, at least not in the near future. So, one interesting note about the Guidestones is, in addition to the guides and the phrases that are etched on it, was another etching, and
Okay.
it said "time capsule," placed 6 feet below this spot, to be opened on blank. That's where it ended. So when the structure blew up and the Elberton County residents, or Elberton town residents, had to collect all the pieces, they dug 6 feet below the structure
Oh my
to
God.
recover the time capsule. But no time capsule was ever found. So the assumption is that it was never buried after all.
What the fuck? I have more questions. I have so many more questions.
Now, in 1986, there was a book that was published. It was called Common Sense Renewed. And it was written by a man named Robert Christian. Now, whether or not this is the R.C. Christian, we'll not know. But it starts out with a quote. "I am the originator of the Georgia Guidestones and the sole author of its inscriptions. I've had the assistance of a number of other American citizens in bringing the monument into being. We have no mysterious purpose or ulterior motives. We seek common sense, pathways to a peaceful world without bias for particular creeds or philosophies."
Cool. Tell us your real name.
But that concludes the file on the mysterious American Stonehenge, the Georgia Guidestones. It was built and destroyed. It no longer exists. Now, while it was in existence, it was estimated that 20,000 annual visitors would show up to this monument every year.
Wow.
So it definitely brought in some money to Elberton. I mean,
That's good. That's
it
always
became sort of a tourist attraction.
Those things can blow up too. Like I always go back to Mothman, the Mothman Festival, just because
absolutely.
it's just a monument of like how much the like weird stories like these can bring people.
Yeah.
And like especially when you have like the freaking Georgia Guidestones like looming over you as well. Like how could you oh my god, I'm so mad I didn't go.
I
So
know.
upset with myself. That's freaking crazy. I am still like stumped that I can't believe the property. Like I can't believe the property owner crap that's going on here. Cause it's like, so I don't know anything about Georgia real estate law. All I know is about Ohio. But like, there's records, there's books.
Yeah, I don't know that because I would think because you can go back and like see like land that people have owned in like the 1800s and shit, right?
Yeah,
Like
I have seen hand signed, handwritten deeds that date all the way back to like 1890. Like I've seen the shit. I know it exists. I am just so at a loss for like how does nobody know who owned this property? And then for it then to revert back to the original owner? Okay,
right.
so who of record had this property until then? Get me a freaking name. Like
Yeah, that was what's bizarre to me is that like no one has been able to find it. Now that Dark Shadows over Elberton, they claim to get a name from so Wyatt Martin claimed that he continued he made like basically a friendship with R.C. Christian.
Uh-huh.
And throughout the years, they would write back and forth. They would exchange letters and things of that nature. And Wyatt Martin claimed that he would keep it all. He kept all of it in a lockbox. He kept all this stuff in a lock. He kept everything. He was a guy kept all of his letters and writings, things like that. He kept all this stuff. He claimed that he kept all the R.C. Christian stuff secure because he had this vow to this man that he would not reveal his identity. No box was ever recovered. At least, his family was unwilling to give up anything or state they found a box or anything like that. So it was probably in his wishes that the stuff be destroyed or whatever. The Dark Clouds over Eberton, they claimed to have gotten a name. I forget what the name was, but they basically just like while they was talking to him, like claimed that they had the camera off, but they were actually recording and recording things around his house. And claimed they got a name off a piece of paper, but it was never proven.
Right.
And one of the interesting things, so I mentioned earlier about the reason for the structure being built on Elberton,
right?
That R.C. Christian gave was that it was because of the large abundance of granite.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's one of the reasons he gave. But he also mentioned a couple of the reasons: the rural nature of its landscape, the mild climate, and interesting enough, family ties to the region.
Oh.
Now, no one has ever came forth that they had an eccentric uncle or a weird brother that matched any sort of description ever given for R.C. Christian around this area. But it's very interesting. He claimed to have had a familiar connection to Elberton, or at least the area around Elberton.
He trust funded them to secrecy. That's what happens. If he's throwing around cash to just like build up some guide stones and everything, and he trust funded that family member to secrecy. He's like, you can have all of it, but don't mention shit about me.
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, he or at least the group that he represented had plenty of money to be thrown around. But that was the guide stones. They're laying in rubble now. The rubble was all collected and shipped off to a third party.
There's no pieces
location.
Of it.
No, they obviously they could have probably made a fortune off of selling that shit.
Oh my god. Well, it's interesting because like the material granite, so it's actually molten lava.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting that it was that far in Georgia. And like it has like a bunch of minerals. It has like a bunch of potassium and everything in it too. But it is a very sturdy structure. as well. I hear like in my head, I'm over here like granite countertops. Oh my God, it's got granite countertops. But like really, it is a thing because it's a super sturdy structure. It's meant to last for a very, very long time. And from what I read of the guidestones is it was carved. Like it was like legit. Like, I mean, and especially from what we're talking about, like, I mean, there were, and when you see it, especially there's sharp edges on that. And I mean, it's very precise and like very beautiful as well. But I thought it was interesting that there was so much of this molten lava, or it's like magmanite or something.
Magnemite.
It's like magma something.
Okay.
I don't remember. Words be hard right now.
It is interesting too, because I mean, obviously Elberton Granite Finishing Company was the ones who designed it there in Elberton. Elberton is also home to the Elberton Granite Museum. So it's a whole museum of granite art and structures, and so apparently Elberton has a very big connection to granite. Yeah.
Did you know red and blue granite is the rarest to find?
I did not. I never knew there was such thing as a red or blue granite.
Me neither,
I thought it was all just gray.
I know. Now I want some.
Now, have you ever heard of ley lines? Do you know what ley lines are?
No. What are ley lines?
So ley lines are like another they're kind of a conspiracy thing. I won't go too much into them because this is something that we could easily do an episode on. It's kind of this subject where basically there's these theoretical lines of energy, and they're straight lines, and people have hypothesized there's these straight lines called ley lines that go from like major historic structures and prominent landmarks, and they're just these like energy channels, and these structures are deliberately constructed on these lines, and that's what kind of makes them so significant, or makes them such a like monumental, pun intended, structure, is that they're built along these ley lines. Now, there are theories that the Georgia Guidestones are one of those structures, that they're built along one of these theoretical ley lines. Other structures along these are the Pyramid of Giza. What else? The Great Wall of China. I think the Great Wall is built upon, or at least a portion of it is on the ley line. There's a bunch like these major structures that are built along these theoretical energy lines.
I wonder if Serpent Mound would be one.
I don't know about that. Maybe, possibly.
I'm gonna have to look more into that. That is super, super cool. Because it would, I mean, of course, it would feed into the fact that this people are drawn to these places because we're all energy, and we all energy is drawn to energy. So. Right. I really want to look more into that one. That one's super cool.
It's easily a subject you could do an episode on.
It might come.
Without a doubt.
We might see it later in the future.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely potential there for that. It's super interesting if you look into them. I've heard about them a lot. Like when you talk about UFO sightings, things like that too. And even like some cryptid sightings people claim are on ley lines.
That's super cool. That's freaking awesome.
But that does it for me as far as the Guidestones.
Oh my god!
What do you think of the Georgia Guidestones, Bailey? Being a Georgia resident,
I don't know if I can call myself that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's freaking cool. It's so mysterious, and so shrouded in secrets and mystery, as every good Southern story does. I was just around a bunch of my family who's from the South, and I'm like, oh, more family secrets. And someone went, yeah, we're real good at those. So I don't know if that's everybody, but it's mine. But I mean, that's just freaking crazy. The property thing I'm just dumbfounded by that. I really am. And, and they never named the small group of Americans either. They just were like, we're a small group of Americans.
A small group of loyal Americans.
Loyal Americans.
Loyal Americans he worked with.
See, that's just...
That was all they were referenced as.
That's that's just so crazy to me. Ty, you did an awesome job covering this. This was freaking cool. Like,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
just so many beebs and bobs and waves that you can go down this one. And like, I'm so upset that it's no longer there anymore.
I
And they
know
never
that's
caught
the craziest
anyone.
thing. It's gone. Like it's one of those things where like I would have loved it when seen just for the conspiratory, mysterious significance of it, but it's just gone. It's crazy. It's when it
It's
blew it
gone.
up. Now I mentioned earlier that that Christian morality activist Mark Dice, he had actually like called for it, like on his, I guess he has like a radio show, or like he actually called for like these things need to be destroyed. They need to
Oh,
be
wow.
exploded, and all the pieces need to be destroyed and buried, and all this stuff. So there's people out there with that intent.
Where was
So
Mark on that fateful night in July? Like, where was
so
Mark at?
so there was people out there that were wishing this upon it, or had at least put that in the zeitgeist that this is something that should happen. These things, they should be destroyed. So
That's freaking
someone
insane.
finally just did it.
Oh my gosh, there's so much of this story that I just can't believe like actually slid. Like, OMG. I can't believe there wasn't more people out there that were like, no, who did this? Like, this was like something that was a part of our town and everything, and now it's just
Yeah,
gone.
yeah.
Like, can
Like
you
I said, the GBI, they investigated it, and just were never able to find who was the perpetrator.
give me 5 minutes down there? Not 5 minutes, maybe give me like 5 weeks or something. 5 minutes is a little short, but we gonna find him. No, that was freaking cool. I love that. I got so much out of this episode. This was really, really cool, Ty. You did awesome. This was
Well, thank you, thank you. I
yes.
really enjoyed talking about it, learning more about it, especially R.C. Christian. Just a interesting, mysterious person.
And hey,
And
he
it just baffles you that there's things like this can happen. There could be a guy that goes unknown and unnoticed. I mean, the dude bought land and he purchased. He's paid $100,000 for a structure, and just no one knows who he
we have no
is.
idea. That's baffling. And the fact that we have so many people after him with the same initials and everything, because that was something that I also read is like most people use aliases that are the same set of initials. Like they
Yeah,
might not be the same initials as their own name, but they keep it all the same.
right.
So clearly this guy is using, I think it's all the same guy. He's using aliases to do whatever he wants, which I mean, that's fine. So far, we haven't found anything super bad, but like, I just want to know who he is.
Depends on your interpretation of the stones, I guess.
It
Some
depends
people
on,
think
yeah, it depends on
some
that.
people think they're very nefarious. Some people think because the intentions seem to be that they were like this post-apocalyptic like teaching tool. We would everything would be lost, computers, books. We the surviving population would just be wandering adrift, and they would come across these stones and worship them and be these are what we need to use to rebuild the society from. But a lot of people interpret them as being like a call to like do this now, like
Yeah.
kill 93% of the
96%.
population. Start doing one world government. Everyone needs to speak the same language and do this stuff now. So depending on your interpretation, they're either like this kind of like meaningful, hopeful symbol, or this like nefarious call for global control.
Yeah. Oh, man. Which is drastically different.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh man,
Absolutely.
I've learned so much this evening, Ty. This has been like brain popping stuff. This is amazing.
Well, excellent. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And
Absolutely.
your last episode, Yachtloft Path, was
Yes.
fantastic. And for anyone who was a fan of that, there's still a lot more to go into. So much so that you're doing a follow up
There's
here
so
in the
much.
next couple weeks.
There's so much. We had to break it. Had to break it
Had to
up.
break it. Had to
Yeah.
break it. Had to
So
cut Essie some slack.
a little bit. Yeah. Not a whole lot.
Yep.
He's Canadian. We do have to make him go to
Yeah.
work. Can't we all,
We'll be back here on in a couple weeks for part 2 of that. I know I've kind of mentioned it a couple times already, but I'm super excited for it. I think it's going to be a really fun to revisit the mysterious events at Dyatlov Pass, the Devil's Pass,
Yep.
and talk more about it.
Oh
'Cause
my
there's a
God.
lot of weird stuff that surrounds that too, just as
There
much as like
is.
the whole Georgia Guidestones things.
There is.
That's a Russian mystery in itself, the
Oh my
Dyatlov
Lord.
Pass.
It's That one's absolutely insane. And like that one, like the more you look up about it, like the more you just find. Like there's so much that comes out, even still to this day. I do want to update all of you, dear listeners. I have indeed watched Devil's Pass since our last recording.
Oh, okay.
That movie pissed
There
me
you
the
go.
fuck off. First of all, I
Did you
was
like it?
so mad. No, I liked it up until I saw the creatures at the Dyatlov Pass, and I was like, you have fucking Yetis, and you're pulling out some winter descent bullshit. Like you
Yeah.
have Yetis. I was upset. I was very upset. I was so upset I didn't even finish watching it. I still have to go finish it. But that's neither here nor there. I just want to let everyone know that Ty and Ben were both right. So
Yeah, it's a pretty shitty movie.
it's a bad one. It's bad.
I haven't seen a good Dyatlov Pass movie. I don't think. I don't think I've ever seen one. Like
Nope.
because like the ones I've seen were found footage and they were pretty shitty.
Yeah, no. I was not very happy. It's still definitely like worth a watch. 'cause-
Actually, I will say the only one I have liked is one of the History Channel did. It was one of those fake documentaries they did. That was like their trend for a while.
yeah.
They did one about the Dyatlov Pass. I think it was called like Killer Yeti or something like that.
Okay.
And it was like a fake, like, you know, they were like the Discovery and History Channel were doing this thing at one point, and it pissed a lot of people off. People really hated it because they thought it cheapened like the channel, where they were doing these like fake found footage documentary things, but they would present it as being real, and it was on the History Channel or the Discovery Channel. So you would automatically go into it thinking that it was real because these channels were upheld with such reverence.
Prestige.
And they would do these fake movies and put them out there like they were real and trick everyone. They did like three about the Megalodon. There's
Which
three
is
Megalodon
still
ones. There's the
cool.
mermaid one. The mermaid one's like the one that kicked that off. There's
Nice.
one about the indigenous Hobbit people of the rainforest. That one's really good. And I'm pretty sure there's one about Dyatlov Pass as well. And it's really good. I think it's called a Killer Yeti or something.
I'm gonna have to.
But I own all those on Prime.
Okay.
I bought them all, like all those. I loved them. They pissed people off, but I loved them.
No, I need to see.
So
these.
there's one out there, and I like it. It's on Prime, I think, for $1.99 or something.
Sweet. Prime is about to get more of my money.
So. Just buy it. Don't buy it twice.
Yeah. I almost forgot about that one. That's a fun Cole to Campbell episodes out there.
Oh yeah, that was definitely check that one out. That was the one December night.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Yeah, 2022 Christmas special for Cole to Campbell.
It was so nice. I bought it twice.
Yeah. Apparently. But there you guys have it. File 036 in the books. We've talked all about Georgia Guidestones and the mysterious benefactor R.C. Christian, all the different theories around him, and also the true intentions of the Guidestones and what they entail. But that does it for us, and we have File 037 coming up here in a couple weeks. Bailey's going to be presenting that one, and keep your guys' ears peeled, because come March, we have some very fun stuff we're going to do. Little different stuff we're going to try, and I'm really excited for it. I talked to Bailey about it before we started recording. We're both on board and excited for March's episodes. So
this is
going to go ahead and let the anticipation build.
Yes, it's going to be.
We're sure to,
guys, you're not
we're
ready.
sure to disappoint.
We are not. I'm coming with my game face on. Okay, I'm ready. Let's do it.
You guys be the judge. You'll have to let us know come April if you enjoyed the March content. But everyone, they can find us at Cult Talk Net across the board: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or X, whatever you want to call it.
Whatever it is.
Threads, I think we're on there as well. You can find us on all the things. Most likely, if you go to a website and type in at Cult Talk Net, you'll find us. Twitter, Instagram, Pornhub.
No.
Whatever it may be.
No.
Not yet.
I mean, Mike's been talking about it. Mike has been talking about it for a long time.
Yeah. Mike and Ursa are going to be on Pornhub doing something. Maybe someday.
Yeah. We're very supportive.
I'm sure everyone would like to see that.
We're very supportive of their dreams over here at the rest of Cult Talk.
Interpret that as you will. But you can find the other Cult Talk Net shows Cult of Campbell comes out on Mondays. Cult of Russell also finds its way on that feed every now and then. Cult Talk Conspiracy, Bailey and I are here every other Tuesday. Cult of Lore, they're back.
Woohoo!
And they are the first and third Thursday of every month. And you got to check youtube.com/culttalknet for that full-length video element they work really hard on. They do some really cool stuff. Eric is slowly becoming a master at animation, which I think is fantastic. And, we have more shows. We have a whole backlog of Cultober Plus. We have American Pie Slices, which was last year's summer events up there.
You want to
And
laugh.
a ton of content
Oh my
on
gosh.
youtube.com/culttalknet. It's insane. If you're just finding Cult Talk Net, you are going to be busy catching up on everything because it is a shit ton of stuff.
Listen, you got a few snow days coming up. You know what's going on. You know what you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
We're coming up on 3 years, which is it's crazy. We're coming up on 3 years of being a podcast network.
That's crazy.
But until then, until next time, I've been Ty.
And I've been Bailey.
Question everything.